Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another exciting episode of Hilaal Live. My name is Luqman Shadrack, all the way from the Cape Town studios. Thanks for watching us on channel 347 on DSTV. Remember, you can also live stream on www.hilaal.tv. I take you until about 6:30. I'll be keeping you company until about that time. And then Faraz Patel and the team in Johannesburg then takes over until about 7:30, inshallah. We break for Maghrib Salah at about 5:30, inshallah. So as we do on a Tuesday, we invite people into the studio that are making a difference in our various communities and being that voice for communities where communities can't proactively engage with government and various stakeholders as well. On tonight's segment, we're delving into the topic that's very close to all of our hearts, public land. That's been a contentious topic for many, many years. And the conventional wisdom is that there's not enough public land available. But recent data has shown that this is actually a big myth. To help us unpack this, first up, we're joined by Nikelwa Maqula, who is a land and housing activist. Nikelwa, thanks very much for joining us once again.
Thank you very much for having me, Luqman.
And it's Maqula,
Yes.
my apologies there. Nikelwa, this has been a topic that's been spoken about for decades. Government has given us the runaround to a large extent. They've been hiding behind certain bylaws and certain, projects that they've been promising for so many years as well. But to better understand the topic of land and the land available as well, could you kindly give us maybe a background behind the public land map? I know that is something that Ndifuna Ukwazi has been very strongly been activist about.
Okay, thank you, Luqman. The history behind the public land map, well, Ndifuna Ukwazi together with Open Hub is something that they've been working on for the past 5 years, if not more, because it was felt that the public needed to know where these pockets, as we could not take what government is telling us at face value that there isn't any public land available or such a percentage of land is available, hence they are not being able to do ABCD or to address the housing crisis throughout the country. So the public land is something that had to be done so that when we confront government with data that is accurate and data that is current.
Right.
So it is very much assisting us in that to that extent.
Okay. All right. The data that is gathered, I mean, there is a process of how this happens as well. How does that work? How do we, as ordinary citizens, and for your organization as well, how do you use that data? How is that moved forward?
Okay. Well, with the data that has been collected, we are currently having the People's Land campaign, where we asking the president in particular, together with the premier, to utilize the State Land Disposal Act, which says that the president has the authority, or he can use his discretion to dispose of land, meaning that he can donate land or give land, but the public needs to apply for that land.
Right.
Now, that was a challenge for us when we were busy mobilizing or organizing for this campaign, because there isn't any data. There wasn't any data available in terms of where the land is or who owns the land. So hence now this action had to be taken, where data had to be collected to identify these pockets of land and also who owns that particular land. And with the data collected, government does own land, both provincial and national government. There is land, a significant amount of land that is owned by both these spheres of government. Yes, that is it.
So the land then gets identified. You then go to a data verification and process. What happens thereafter? I mean, do you then take this fight to government, local government and national government? How does it work, and is there a process?
Okay. The process is, with the land that has been identified, here in Cape Town, for instance, I'm going to make an example about the Cape Town. Mm-hmm. We have people that are homeless people. We have people that have occupied buildings. We have backyard dwellers. So if a particular community comes together and says that we've identified, a particular community can come together and say, we've identified this particular parcel of land, mm-hmm. and then the researchers will be able to now know with the assistance of the land map, will be able to know what this particular pocket of land belongs to which department. Is it a national department or is it a provincial department? Mm. Then the application process starts, whereby now the community needs to write a letter. If the land belongs to the province, the community will write a letter directed to the premier. If the land belongs to national, the community will write a letter directed to the national, to that particular department, and mm-hmm. also to the president, to say, we've identified this parcel of land. Please donate it to whatever need. You must remember, Lukman, that here in South Africa, there's this notion that government owns land, of which it's a myth. The people own land. Government is just in custody of that particular land. And right. the people have the authority to say, or to instruct government in terms of how should that particular land be utilized. If the community says we want a school in this particular, they can say so. If they say we want houses, they can say so. Okay. So we are trying to break that misinformation or miseducation where there has been this notion where that government owns land, of which it's a myth. Government does not own any land. People own the land. Right. And the people have the power or the authority to instruct government in terms of how land should be utilized. Okay.
The question then beckons, Nikelwa, is we have a large amount of foreign nationals in our various communities. Do then, for example, that land gets donated to the community. Is there a process on who is allowed to then occupy that land? For example, if low-cost housing is built on that land, do we say it's South African citizens first, then foreign nationals? Is that a process in place?
Unfortunately, Lukman, here in South Africa, when it comes to the only rights or the only things foreign nationals cannot exercise is to vote. They cannot vote in South Africa. Right. But when it comes to getting a house or getting access to schools and healthcare, we have equal opportunities as foreign nationals. Obviously, the foreign nationals have to be documented, have to have the right documentations in order for them to access those. The only right they don't have with regards to, in terms of it's to vote, they cannot vote in South Africa. They have to vote in their respective countries. But in terms of accessing housing and and education and healthcare, they have equal rights as us as South Africans. But also it also stems with the communities in terms of how do they organize themselves. Right. How do they organize themselves in terms of championing on how that particular parcel of land can be used?
Land is not just one of the concerns of your organization in Ndifuna Ukwazi, but I know there was a fire in Johannesburg recently where you guys went up as well, and lots of foreign nationals and locals were affected by that fire. And there's massive controversy about who takes responsibility for. Can you share maybe a little light on maybe the current situation and how we can deal with that?
Well, when we went to Johannesburg this past weekend, the situation is very dire when it comes to South Africans having no access to land, and the government's response is what is critical here, because government is failing. We need to state it clearly that the government is not capacitated to provide housing to the citizens, and they are failing because those buildings there, and also the narrative that has been spreading throughout the media, that those buildings are hijacked, they are harboring criminals, they are harboring prostitutes, drug dealers and whatnot. That is not the correct narrative. People need to go there, go on a fact-finding mission. Those are ordinary citizens, South Africans, and the majority of people that are there are South Africans. They are not foreign nationals. Right. They are South Africans, they are not foreign nationals, but government has been government's response is what is worrying me, because instead of funding a solution to the occupation of those buildings, they disconnect. The government is the one that should be actually blamed for that, because the fire, I could say they are 100% responsible for the fire that occurred in Marshalltown, because the city of Johannesburg has the capacity to go and install fire hydrants, but they didn't. They cut water, they cut electricity. That is a recipe for disaster. Hence, we are sitting in a situation where 77 lives were lost.
Absolutely.
And many more are going to be lost, because the buildings, people are sitting in dark buildings where there's no water and there isn't any electricity.
That's cause them to
there
make
is
their
no
own
basic
fire
services.
And,
people have to resort now to making their own fire.
Gotcha. And that's where the incidents can occur as well. Yes. It's a dire situation. You're absolutely right. And, we're going to watch that very closely as well. After the break, we're going to open up the WhatsApp lines. We'd like your response on our topic tonight with regards to the land issue in our country. It's not just happening here in the Western Cape, but throughout the country where people have been promised land. Government has promised land to the people and has taken their time in allocating that land accordingly. So do join us after the break on the WhatsApp line as well. We are chatting to Ndifuna Ukwazi in studio, and we'd like your response. You are still watching Hilaal Live. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Hilaal Live. Thanks for watching us on channel 347 on DSTV and live streaming on www.hilaal.tv. In studio, we have a researcher at Ndifuna Ukwazi, Robyn Park-Ross, and then also land and housing activist, Nikelwa Maqula, chatting about the People's Land demonstrating available for the public land for housing that's been promised to our various communities over the very many years as well. Ladies, thanks once again for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
We're joined by Robyn now as well. And before the break, we chatted to Nikelwa with regards to the land map and some of the data that's needed as well. But before we delve further into that topic, Robyn, could you maybe please provide us with some details about the upcoming 3-day gathering that's hosted by Ndifuna Ukwazi at the District 6 Homecoming Centre?
Of course. So from Thursday to Saturday, we're having a 3-day urban land justice gathering that's co-hosted by the District 6 Museum, PLAS and SERI. So we're really excited to have an incredible range of land and housing activists, artists, built environment professionals, officials, and more joining us. So the event is completely free. Anybody can join. On Thursday night from 6 to 8 p.m. at the District 6 Homecoming Centre, we have the exhibition opening, family friendly. There'll be snacks, art, performances, games.
Nice.
It'll be a beautiful evening. Thursday and Saturday, we have the talks program. So you can find out the full program and you can RSVP on the NU website. So that's www.nu.org.za, and there's just a big button that says Urban Land Justice Gathering.
What's the aim of the gathering? What are we hoping to achieve by collectively coming together?
That's a great question. I think coming together of people is not something to be underestimated. There's very few moments, this struggle and this fight against urban land injustice can sometimes feel, and I'm sure Nikelwa will also speak to this, can sometimes feel like putting out fires, responding every day there's a new crisis to deal with. And so we are constantly in a mode of reacting as opposed to proactively responding to build a more just city. So this is really a moment for us all to come together, to be inspired by different people's actions that they're taking from different sectors. So we have faith-based organizations, we have architects, we have storytellers, we have the District 6 Museum, we have artists, poets, performers, all these different people who are all working from where they are in society to build a better city. So it's about taking a moment to be inspired by each other's action, to really take stock of what is the situation, what needs to be done, and essentially to inspire action. At the center of the entire gathering is the launch of this People's Land Map that you've been speaking about on the show, which basically exposes how much vacant and underutilized public land exists in our city that could be used to really transform inform the way we experience the city now. So we speak a lot about housing, but also just to say that, you know, the map shows vacant and underutilized, that different land that different communities might want to use in different ways. Maybe in your community you need a youth center, maybe you need an urban agriculture garden, maybe you need housing. This is about people getting the information into their hands about what public land is available in their areas to build a better community.
So you have a collective group of people that are sharing their views, their stories, and their input, but that input and stories, is it then passed to the relevant stakeholders? Because the people that need to hear this obviously are the ones that need to be there at the event, or then that message carried to them so that they're aware of what our communities are going through.
That's a great question. So we have invited many different government officials, and we'll see if they join us or not.
Right, good luck.
But what I think really, really importantly, I would pass to Nikelwa maybe to explain a little bit about the political party debate, because I think that's a really crucial space that's very unique, where ahead of the 2024 elections, we've been able to bring together politicians from a range of parties to really express directly their position and policies on land and housing issues, but also give citizens, residents, a chance to engage with them directly. So, Nikelwa, I don't know if you want to expand on that point at all.
You know, it's amazing that you say that, because that's exactly what my question was heading to, is the relevant stakeholders. Look, we celebrate 29 years of democracy. It's clear that, you know, the topic of land remains a central point of discussion leading up to the elections next year as well. But how do we plan to hold politicians accountable for exactly what was discussed over the, you know, 3 decades? And how do we move forward? How do we align your vision to what the politicians need to put into action?
Well, on the urban land gathering that is going to be happening this weekend, it's going to be a space where there's going to be a debate. We've invited like a few political parties, namely the ANC, the EFF, the Democratic Alliance, and the RISE, which is the new kid on the block, to come and tell us what do they have on the plate for the people. Because remember, look, man, there's a gap when it comes to government and this and the people. So we in a way, the urban land gathering is a way of trying to narrow or bridge that gap, where we are going to create a space where people, the officials and the political parties can engage with people, because we only see these political parties when it's time for them to campaign in our communities. So there isn't a space where a normal conversation can be had. And so we are trying to bridge and also narrow the gap between the communities and government officials.
Are we expecting a lot of hot wind, though? Or are we expecting them to come up with some type of a solution, some type of way forward? Because, as you said, very rightly said, when it comes to elections, you know, miraculously, all these individuals appear, and then we don't see them for the next 4 years again.
For me, now, it's my personal thing that, you know, with the 2024 elections, it's a different ball game. So people need to up their game, because the people on the ground have had it. That's a sincere thing that is on the ground. The people have had it with political parties. They've had it with promises, because we've been promised a lot of things throughout the decades. So they need to up their game.
Absolutely. We're going to open up the WhatsApp lines as well. If you'd like to send us a WhatsApp message with regards to today's topic on land and the land that's been promised to our communities, 079 085 2511. Let us know your thoughts as well. You know, we have to be optimistic to a point. At the same time, that optimism needs to stop to a certain point and say, right, guys, you need to start taking actions. You promise certain things. You now need to deliver on those promises as well. And is that what you're obviously hoping for as well, Nikelwa?
And with the question of land, it's not a negotiating matter.
Absolutely.
We are not negotiating, we are not begging, but we are saying, look, this is what is provided on the Constitution. Act on it.
I agree.
Act on it.
Yeah, so you put together a land map, a lot of research, a lot of data has gone into this land map. how do people use the land map? Is it quite easy to use, and can anybody access it?
So maybe just for a little bit of context, because I mean, this was a 5-year process of us manually mapping vacant and underutilized land over 1,000 square meters that's public, that we think could be used for housing.
Right.
Just to say that, before we started making this map, we went to the government itself. So we used a variety of tactics. First, we asked them, we wrote to them, please provide us this data. How are we meant to advocate for where affordable housing should be if we don't know where the public land is? And we were constantly denied. We then kind of escalated our tactics. Every way that we tried to get this information, we were denied. So really, we spent 5 years kind of manually putting together this picture, which is really a snapshot in time that shows the vast amount of available vacant and underutilized public land. Shockingly, we actually found that it's roughly 128 square kilometers in total, which is actually bigger than the entire city of Barcelona put together.
Wow.
That's how much public land we're dealing with. And we have to remember that public land, it's not actually owned by the government, it's the people's land. The government is the custodian. They're meant to make these decisions on behalf of communities. So the map itself is one interactive online tool. On Friday, when we launch the map website will go live. You can find it on the NU website.
And the 128 kilometers, look, I've never been to Barcelona, so I can draw a comparison maybe from here to Langebaan or, Saldanha, that's about 100 odd kilometers away. And are they now obviously situated in various pockets?
Situated in various pockets and various kind of, the different spheres of governments. There's SOEs, there's the city, province, national. For example, the national government, they own the biggest pieces of land. So some work that was done by civil society kind of collaboration showed that just on 3 of the big military bases that the national government owns, 67,000 homes could be built. Imagine that's 67,000 families that could be homed on this land. So that's just one example. What we found, for example, with the city itself, they own the amount of vacant and underutilized city-owned land just that we found, there's probably more that we didn't find, was about the size of 9,500 soccer fields. So picture that in your mind. Really, there is land, there is space, like let's do something with it. So the map itself, it's a very user-friendly map. You can click on your area, you can see how much land is available in your area. But also importantly, the map also showcases promises that were made on this land. So it looks
Which were not delivered.
So it looks at a timeline. For example, there's a piece of land called the Salt River Market that some people might be familiar with on the circle.
Correct.
And actually the map traces how that was first committed for affordable housing in 2008. We're sitting here in 2023 and not a single home is delivered on the site.
Ladies, thanks very much for coming in. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for. We can talk about this for hours and hours, but we'll definitely invite you guys back and where we can, rehash this very important topic. Very quickly, where can people go through to the website?
So it's www.n for Nelly, U for umbrella.org.za.
Brilliant. Thanks. Keep the good fight going and we'll speak soon.
Thank you so much for having us.
So there we go, Ndifuna Ukwazi in studio chatting about a very important topic that's been launched this weekend. Do go and check out the website and see how you can get involved as well. We take a break for Maghrib Salah from Makkah at the moment. When we come back just before 6 o'clock, I speak to Dr. Samina Parkar on the topic of hair loss. That's very important for some of us. So do join us and see how you could, we'll open the WhatsApp line for that as well and see how you could benefit from that. Thanks for watching us on Hilaal Live.